The city hummed with an incessant symphony of ambition and deadlines. In the heart of it all lived a man named Alex, a brilliant architect whose days were a relentless pursuit of perfection. From the moment his alarm pierced the morning stillness, a low thrum of worry would begin in his chest. Had he remembered to send that crucial email? Was the presentation slide perfectly aligned? What if the client changed their mind or the budget ran over? Each what if was a thread in an intricate web of anxiety that he meticulously wove around himself. Alex believed this constant vigilance was his superpower. He saw it as the engine driving his success, the invisible hand that prevented disasters. His colleagues admired his foresight, his uncanny ability to anticipate problems before they arose. "Alex never misses a beat," they'd say, unaware of the silent cost. He'd often tell himself, "If I just worry enough, I can control the outcome. If I plan for every single contingency, then nothing can catch me off guard." This conviction was deeply ingrained, a truth he held on to with an unyielding grip. But beneath the veneer of control, a profound weariness was setting in. Sleep offered little respite, often interrupted by mental rehearsals of future challenges. His meals were rushed, his conversations distracted, his very presence often somewhere else, perpetually caught in the labyrinth of tomorrow's worries. He rarely experienced the simple joy of a sunset, the warmth of a friend's laughter, or the quiet satisfaction of a project completed. For Alex, peace was a destination forever, just beyond the horizon, always to be reached after the next hurdle was cleared, the next crisis averted. He wasn't alone in this. So many of us in our modern world find ourselves in a similar dance with anxiety. We equate worry with responsibility, foresight with fear. We mistakenly believe that by constantly dwelling on potential problems, we are somehow protecting ourselves, safeguarding our future. We clutch at anxiety as if it were a shield, unaware that it's often a cage we've built around our own hearts. This deep-seated belief that anxiety is a useful tool is perhaps one of the greatest illusions we face in our pursuit of inner peace. It promises control, yet delivers only exhaustion. This constant state of apprehension, this internal alarm bell that never quite silences, has a profound impact on our inner landscape. Imagine your mind as a beautiful, serene garden. Now, picture anxiety as a persistent, thorny weed that, left unchecked, can quickly overrun the most delicate flowers and choke the vibrant life within. It isn't just a fleeting emotion. It's a deeply ingrained pattern of thought that, over time, can reshape the very pathways of our brains, making worry a default setting. In Buddhist teachings, we often speak of dukkha, a term often translated as suffering or unsatisfactoriness. But it's more nuanced than that. It encompasses a pervasive feeling of unease, discontent, and stress that arises from our constant craving and aversion. Anxiety, in many ways, is a manifestation of dukkha, our resistance to the inherent impermanence of life, our clinging to the idea that things should be a certain way, and our fear of what might happen if they aren't. We anticipate future misfortunes, replaying potential scenarios in our minds, and in doing so, we create suffering in the present moment. Think of it like this: your mind is constantly whispering. Sometimes these are gentle, creative whispers. Other times they are frantic, fearful shouts. Anxiety amplifies those fearful whispers, turning them into a deafening roar that drowns out everything else. It convinces us that by listening intently to every single one of its anxious suggestions, we are being prudent, prepared. But what it's actually doing is pulling us away from the richness of the present. It distracts us from the beauty that surrounds us, the simple joys available right now, and the quiet wisdom that resides within us. This mental chatter, fueled by anxiety, creates a perpetual state of restlessness. It's like being caught in a swirling current, constantly fighting against the flow, rather than simply allowing ourselves to float. We become entangled in a web of what-ifs and if-onlys, projecting ourselves endlessly into an imagined future or dwelling on an unchangeable past. This is where the roots of anxiety truly lie, not in the external circumstances themselves, but in our relationship to them and our internal response to the inevitable changes that life presents. The whispers of the anxious mind can be so convincing, can't they? They often trick us into believing that the very thing causing us distress is also somehow our salvation. It reminds me of an ancient parable often shared in Buddhist traditions, known as the parable of the raft. Imagine a traveler who comes to a wide, swift-flowing river. On this side there is danger and uncertainty. On the other side there is safety and peace. The traveler, being resourceful, gathers branches, vines, and leaves, diligently constructing a raft. With great effort, he launches his raft into the river and, with skill and perseverance, paddles across to the other shore. He has successfully navigated the treacherous waters, reaching his desired destination. Now picture this. Having arrived safely on the other side, does the traveler then hoist the raft onto his shoulders and continue his journey through the dry land, dragging this heavy, cumbersome object with him wherever he goes? Does he believe that because the raft was essential for crossing the river, it must therefore be essential for every step of his journey thereafter? Of course not. He understands that the raft, though incredibly useful for its purpose, now serves no further function. To carry it would be foolish, burdensome, and ultimately prevent him from moving forward with ease. He wisely leaves the raft behind, a tool that served its purpose, and continues his journey unencumbered. This parable offers us profound insight into our relationship with anxiety. There are times in life when a certain level of foresight, caution, or even a brief period of intense focus on a problem can be like that raft, a necessary tool to navigate a difficult passage. But many of us, much like the traveler who might cling to his raft, continue to carry our anxiety long after it has served any constructive purpose. We mistake the tool for the destination. We believe that because worry helped us avoid a past pitfall, then worrying must be the key to avoiding all future pitfalls. But clinging to anxiety, dragging it along with us, only weighs us down. It saps our energy, obstructs our view, and prevents us from fully experiencing the rich landscape of the present moment. Just as the raft, though useful for crossing, becomes a burden on dry land, so too does chronic anxiety prevent us from walking freely and lightly on the path of life. It's about understanding that some mental habits, even if they once seemed helpful, can become obstacles to our peace. The wisdom lies in discerning when to use a tool and when to gently lay it down. Once we begin to understand that our perpetual worry isn't serving us, a natural question arises. What then? How do we navigate a world of uncertainties without the familiar, if burdensome, crutch of anxiety? This is where the profound practice of mindfulness steps in, a concept deeply rooted in ancient wisdom traditions, particularly Buddhism, and now widely recognized for its therapeutic benefits in modern psychology. Mindfulness is not about emptying your mind or achieving a state of blissful detachment. Rather, it's about intentionally bringing your attention to the present moment without judgment. It's about becoming aware of your thoughts, one's feelings, bodily sensations, and the surrounding environment as they arise from moment to moment. Think of it as gently anchoring yourself to the here and now, preventing your mind from being swept away by the currents of past regrets or future fears. In the Buddhist tradition, this practice is often spoken of as right mindfulness within the Eightfold Path, a practical guide to leading a fulfilling life. It's about cultivating an alert yet relaxed awareness of our inner and outer experiences. For someone caught in the grip of anxiety, this might seem daunting. How do you quiet a mind that's constantly racing? The beautiful truth is, you don't have to force it to be quiet. You simply observe it. Imagine you're sitting by a flowing river, watching leaves float by. Some leaves are bright and green. Others are brown and tattered. Some move swiftly. Others linger. You don't jump into the river to grab any particular leaf, nor do you try to stop the flow. You simply watch them pass. In mindfulness, your anxious thoughts are like those leaves. You acknowledge them, you see them, but you don't chase after them, and you don't get swept away by them. You simply observe them, noting their presence, and then gently bring your attention back to your breath, or the sounds around you, or the feeling of your feet on the ground. This seemingly simple act of returning to the present moment again and again is incredibly powerful. It's a gentle retraining of the mind, a subtle shift from being driven by anxiety to being guided by awareness. Through regular practice, even for just a few minutes each day, you begin to create a space between you and your anxious thoughts. In that space, you find the freedom to choose your response rather than simply reacting out of fear. It's in this presence that true inner peace begins to reveal itself. As we learn to anchor ourselves in the present moment through mindfulness, another ancient truth emerges, one that beautifully complements this practice: the wisdom of impermanence, or anicca, as it's known in Buddhist philosophy. This isn't a pessimistic view of life, but rather a realistic and ultimately liberating understanding that everything, absolutely everything, is in a constant state of flux. Nothing is permanent. Everything changes. Our anxiety often arises from our deep-seated resistance to this fundamental truth. We cling to pleasant experiences hoping they'll last forever. We dread unpleasant ones, desperately wishing they would never come or would quickly disappear. We strive for certainty, for fixed outcomes, in a universe that is inherently dynamic and ever-shifting. This clinging, this resistance to change, creates immense inner tension and fuels the fire of anxiety. We worry about losing what we have or not getting what we want, all because we forget that change is the only constant. Consider the ebb and flow of the tides, the changing seasons, the growth and decay of a forest. Life is a continuous dance of arising and passing away. When we accept this truth, when we truly internalize that life is a river that never stops flowing, we begin to release our grip on the illusion of control. we realize that trying to halt the flow is not only impossible, but also incredibly exhausting. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh often spoke of impermanence as a key to happiness. He encouraged us to look deeply at a flower, understanding that its beauty is inseparable from its eventual fading. This awareness doesn't diminish its beauty. In fact, it enhances our appreciation for its presence now. Similarly, when we understand that moments of joy, sorrow, success, or challenge are all transient, we can hold them more lightly. We can savor the good without fearing its end, and we can face the difficult knowing that it too will pass. This doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent. Instead, it cultivates a profound sense of adaptability and resilience. When we embrace impermanence, we become more like the willow tree, bending with the wind rather than breaking against it. Our minds, instead of being rigid and resistant, become more flexible and open to the natural unfolding of life. It's in this acceptance, this willingness to flow with what is, that a deep and abiding peace can take root, independent of external circumstances. When we cultivate mindfulness and begin to embrace impermanence, a curious thing often happens. We start to notice the inner critic more clearly. This voice, often harsh and demanding, is amplified when we're anxious. It tells us we're not good enough, that we should have done better, or that our worries are a sign of weakness. This constant self-judgment only tightens the grip of anxiety, adding another layer of suffering to our already troubled minds. It's like being caught in a storm and then scolding yourself for being wet. This is precisely where the practice of compassion for the self, or self-compassion, becomes profoundly healing. In Buddhist teachings, metta, or loving kindness, is a fundamental practice. While it often begins with extending kindness to others, its most powerful application for those struggling with anxiety is to direct that same warmth and understanding inward. Imagine a close friend comes to you, overwhelmed with worry and self-doubt. Would you scold them? Tell them they're foolish for feeling what they feel? Of course not. You'd offer comfort, reassurance, and empathy. Self-compassion is simply offering that same gentle, understanding response to yourself. Anxiety often isolates us, making us feel uniquely burdened. We might think we're the only ones who experience such intense worry, and this feeling of isolation only deepens the distress. Self-compassion reminds us that suffering is a universal human experience. It's not about self-pity or letting ourselves off the hook. It's about acknowledging our pain with kindness, recognizing that imperfection is part of being human, and treating ourselves with the same care we would extend to someone we love. When anxiety arises, instead of pushing it away or judging yourself for feeling it, try a simple act of self-compassion. Place a hand over your heart. Take a few deep breaths and gently say to yourself, "This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need." 1. This isn't a quick fix, but a radical act of tenderness towards your own being. This practice helps to soothe the nervous system, to quiet that inner critic, and to create a space of safety within ourselves, even amidst external turmoil. It's about recognizing that your anxious heart deserves tenderness, not harshness. It's a profound shift from fighting against yourself to nurturing yourself, and it is a cornerstone for true inner healing. With mindfulness as our anchor, impermanence as our lens, and self-compassion as our embrace, we start to experience a remarkable shift. Anxiety, which once felt like an insurmountable wall, begins to soften, to reveal itself not as an enemy, but as a messenger. We realize that true inner peace isn't the absence of challenges, or even the complete elimination of anxious feelings. Instead, it's the profound capacity to meet those challenges and those feelings with wisdom and an unwavering inner strength. This is what we call resilience. Think of a mighty oak tree. It stands firm against the fiercest winds, not because it's rigid and unmoving, but because its roots run deep, allowing it to sway and bend without breaking. Similarly, our inner peace, when cultivated through these practices, becomes that deep root system. When the winds of anxiety blow, we might still feel their force, but we are no longer uprooted or shattered by them. We learn to bend, to adapt, to trust in our ability to withstand. There's a beautiful saying, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." This isn't to romanticize pain, but to acknowledge that our struggles, including anxiety, can become powerful teachers. Each time we choose to meet our anxiety with awareness, acceptance, and kindness, rather than fear and resistance, we build a new pathway in our minds. We develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and our inherent capacity to navigate discomfort. It's in these moments of conscious engagement, rather than avoidance, that our true strength is forged. Consider the story of a young monk who, when facing a difficult task, was advised by his master, "Do not fear the mountain, for the mountain is not your enemy. Your resistance to climbing it, that is what causes your pain." The monk learned to focus on each step, not the summit, to accept the steepness of the path, and in doing so, he found strength he never knew. He realized the mountain wasn't just an external obstacle, but a reflection of his own internal resistance. This is the essence of transforming anxiety into resilience. We learn to approach our internal mountains with a different spirit. We acknowledge their presence, we understand their nature, and then we choose to engage with them from a place of calm awareness, rather than frantic reaction. This journey isn't about escaping anxiety, but about integrating it into a richer, more robust experience of life, discovering that even in its presence, our inner light can shine brightly. So we've journeyed through understanding anxiety's deceptive grip, learned to loosen its hold through mindfulness, embraced the freeing truth of impermanence, and extended kindness to ourselves through self-compassion, ultimately building our inner resilience. But the quest for inner peace isn't a destination you arrive at once and then forget. It's a continuous unfolding, a path you walk each day, one step at a time. It's like tending a garden. You don't plant seeds once and expect a perpetual bloom. You nurture it, water it, weed it consistently. The journey to lasting inner peace is a practice. It requires patience, gentle persistence, and a willingness to return again and again to these fundamental truths. There will be days when the clouds of anxiety feel heavy, when old habits of worry resurface. This is perfectly normal. The key is not to judge yourself for these moments, but to simply notice them, and then gently re-engage with the tools we've discussed. Perhaps you might adopt a simple daily ritual. It could be as short as 5 minutes of quiet breathing, simply observing the rise and fall of your chest, allowing thoughts to pass like clouds. Or when a wave of worry washes over you, pause. Place Place a hand on your heart and offer yourself a silent, kind message. This is a moment of discomfort. May I be gentle with myself. Remember, the goal isn't to never feel anxious again, but to change your relationship with anxiety, to respond to it with wisdom rather than reaction. A timeless proverb reminds us, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. In the context of inner peace, that single step is often a conscious breath, a moment of awareness, a flicker of kindness towards ourselves. Each time you choose awareness over automatic worry, each time you embrace what is rather than resisting it, each time you offer yourself compassion, you're taking a powerful step on this transformative path. You possess within you the capacity for profound calm, for unwavering resilience, and for a deep, abiding sense of peace. It's not something to be found outside of yourself, but something to be uncovered, cultivated, and nurtured within. Let your journey continue, one story, one truth, one moment at a time, towards a more balanced, meaningful life.